Hi, I'm an addict named Jill. Oh, wait. I'm a recovering addict is what you want me to say. Okay. Sorry. Let's start over. Hi, I'm a recovering addict named Jill. My clean date is April 16th, 2012, which means I have just a little over 5 years clean. I started using drugs when I was 16. I started smoking marijuana, and it was more a peer pressure thing than anything else. I didn't want to smoke marijuana, but I was put in a situation where I had kept lying about the fact that I did. And when it was in my face, I felt as though I had no choice but to start smoking it. And I did. And I was smoking marijuana eventually on a daily basis. And that lasted for quite some time. And without me even realizing that that was going to be a gateway to other drugs. I had my child, my one and only son, when I was 18, almost 19. And so for the time I was pregnant, I didn't smoke, but I thought about it quite a bit. After I had my son, I went right back to smoking marijuana, and it was a pretty easy thing to pick back up. I lived in my own apartment, and my son's father was also involved in that activity, so we just did it together. Eventually, at the age of 21, I was introduced to another chemical that I liked, and it was cocaine. And it was that quick pace happiness type high for me. So I did that pretty regularly as well. And I didn't realize back then the progression, continuing to smoke marijuana as well, and then just doing the cocaine and thinking about it and wanting to do it more and more. On my 26th birthday, I had been partying with my son's father, and I couldn't inhale it up my nose anymore. And he introduced me to smoking the cocaine. And the first hit I ever took, I felt as though I had arrived. And that led me down quite a destructive path. It didn't take long for me to find myself in my first rehab. So after 4 months of smoking cocaine, my mother threatened to take my child from me, and so I went into a rehab. It was Easter Sunday, and I went to a rehab in Buffalo, and I was there for 20 some odd days. And when I went into that rehab, I was only going to stop smoking cocaine. I wasn't going to stop smoking marijuana. I didn't think that marijuana was my problem. So, I had already made that decision when I went in. And when I got out of the rehab, I may have lasted, I don't even know. I didn't last long, I'll tell you that. And I picked up pretty much right where I left off and was smoking again. This led to several detoxes and inpatient rehabs. And I thought that the problem was where I lived. I could never even fathom that I might be the problem, that, it was me and my thought process. So around the time of maybe my 4th or 5th rehab, I decided I was going to move to Buffalo. And because I had met a girl in the rehab, and she offered a room in her apartment to me. So I moved to Buffalo and moved in with her. And I subsequently met another man while living in Buffalo. And this man also used, and it was like a honeymoon for a short period of time. And then I came out of work one night and he was like sleeping at the table that he was waiting for me at. And, I laughed it off and said, what's going on? You fell asleep out here? And come to find out, he wasn't sleeping, but he was nodding. And he introduced me to heroin. That drug brought me to my knees. I started sniffing heroin when I was 26 years old, and I didn't realize how physical the addiction to that drug was or would be for me. And so I used to sniff the dope with him, and it wasn't until one night when I was up all night and just puking and just not feeling well at all physically that he informed me that I now had what was called a habit, which meant that I had to sniff dope every day in order for me to not be sick. If I didn't sniff it, my back would hurt. I would have dry heaves. I could not function at all. So I ended up having to go to a pretty rough section of the city every day and cop my dope. And to do that, I had to come up with the money. And I found myself stealing from my family. I stole a lot of money from my grandmother. I stole money out of cash registers in Chinese restaurants and little corner stores that, happened to be available. And did whatever I had to do to get the fix so I wouldn't be sick. The heroin, I had to go inpatient rehab to kick the dope. When I went inpatient, I was put on a drug called Clonidine, and the Clonidine, they put me on it, and I took it for, I think it was 5 days, and they had to wean me off of it. And after the 5th day, I got so sick. I thought it was a stomach bug, but I, to this day, believe that it was just me still having residual effects of the heroin. And so, fortunately for me, I didn't touch heroin after that. However, cocaine had such a pull and was such a draw for me that I could not give that up. I continued to use cocaine for the next 10 years, off and on for 10 years. I found myself in the streets behind cocaine. I found myself prostituting behind cocaine. I found myself still continuing to steal from my family. I graduated to stealing purses out of grocery carts in the grocery store. And, I just couldn't see myself not living without cocaine. I loved it. And it brought me to some really dark, dismal places, physically and mentally. And, I was able to work at times. There were times when I, would have a job. I was employable. I was employed, but never employable. I could get a job. I just couldn't keep a job, whether it be because I was stealing from people or I was not at work doing no-call, no-shows, or my work performance was really lacking when I was high. I would go to work high. I would, if I didn't go to work high, I would leave work and get high on my lunch. I would, I obsessed about it. If I didn't get high during work, it was the first thing I did when I got out of work. So, the part of my disease that I have, the obsession, definitely was prevalent for me. I guess, the birth of my first grandson was a pivotal point for me. I didn't stop using. However, it certainly curtailed some of my business and made me rethink my priorities. I didn't want this little person to see their grandma getting high, or to have that image of their grandmother, out on the street, or waking up with a blunt in her hand. So, I certainly tried to kick and not use and not allow the urges to overcome me. But I then found myself going on binges where I could go for quite some time, maybe 6-7 months, without smoking cocaine. I certainly was smoking weed every day, but then I would go on a 3-day binge where nobody would see or hear from me for those 3 days, and I was smoking cocaine and overdrawing my bank accounts and renting out cars and just doing some really crazy things that I wouldn't normally do if the drug didn't have such a hold on me. So my last use, I had been on a 3-day binge, and I say that I wanted God to kill me. I asked God to kill me, but it really, my last use, that was a cop-out for me. I wanted to die because I didn't want to face the consequences of that last use. And so at that point, when I did finally make it home, I went to a meeting, and thank God a 12-step program saved my life. I ended up at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Didn't feel as though I belonged, but the women there introduced me to another person that went to Narcotics Anonymous, which is what I really felt is where I needed to be. Narcotics Anonymous encompasses everything, drugs and alcohol, and focuses on not just the drugs, but on the behaviors behind things that make you use. For me, I never felt that I was a part of things. I never felt like I fit in, and so I fit in with the drug crowd, and that was part of what led me down that path. Narcotics Anonymous has saved my life, and it has certainly afforded me opportunities that would have never been given to me had I continued to use. I don't know that I would have even been alive and sitting here to tell my story if I had continued to use. I had certainly been in some pretty precarious situations where my life was in danger. Living on the streets of Rochester, New York, it's not a fun place to be, nor is it safe. I've had guns pulled on me. I have, been in situations where I've ended up in the hospital, for days because I just wanted one more. So, I don't think I'd want my life to be any other way than it is now, and it wouldn't be this way if I hadn't found the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and allowed some people into my life to help me, and admitted that I needed the help. So, if you can get anything out of this, there's hope. I never felt that there was hope. I never felt that I would be anywhere but in the streets using drugs, and that's not the case for me today. So, give yourself a break. Go to a meeting. Check it out. Your misery will be readily refunded if you don't think that this is the way for you. Thanks for letting me share.